right, everybody, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. For those of you here in the Northeast, I hope you're doing okay as far as managing the snow. It has been crazy for that matter. We have more than 2 feet of snow and counting. That's supposed to last right through Tuesday. It's been pretty wild. Let's just say that. But right now we continue on this ever-changing storyline regarding Deshaun Watson, the possibility, the potential that he could end up getting traded to the New York Jets or maybe somewhere else. As the story just continues to evolve, and it took a slight turn, a slight little twist over the weekend. I know this has been addressed by a lot of people online, but I want to get my chance to expand upon this as well, and that was the Rams-Lions deal where they basically swapped quarterbacks, for that matter. Matthew Stafford going from Detroit to L.A., and then Jared Goff on the return end going from L.A. to Detroit. And when you take a look and you try to determine who potentially won that deal, a lot of people will say that Detroit won the deal because they were able to not only get Goff, but also get 2 first-round picks from the Los Angeles Rams that they can use in the future. They aren't exactly committed to Goff long-term. When you crunch all the salary cap numbers, they really only have to stay committed to him for about 2 years, and then they can move on and get somebody else or draft somebody else for that matter. And who knows, maybe they even try to flip Goff at some point down the road, whether it be this year before the draft or even, because anything's possible for that matter, or the way they wait a year, let Goff be the quarterback for them for the Lions this year, and then try to flip him in 2022. So the Lions do have options, whereas the Rams now take the brunt load of the pressure. They bring in basically an older version of Jared Goff in Matthew Stafford. I'm not really crazy about either one of these two guys. Both of them are good quarterbacks. I understand that, but both of them have had their issues over the years as well. But Stafford going to L.A., an established starting quarterback going to a team that's been a contender for several years now, was at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and they are putting their money in the basket of Matthew Stafford that he can get them over the hump where Jared Goff could not. So the Rams are under a lot of pressure moving forward now with an older quarterback at 33 years old and who probably has, not everyone's Tom Brady for that matter, maybe 5 years left in his right arm for that matter. So an interesting trade, and the question that a lot of people are asking is, how does this deal necessarily affect what could happen with Deshaun Watson? And as was pointed out by the Houston Chronicle's John McClain, he put this on Twitter, and I know a lot of people have seen this already. The Lions-Rams deal will have nothing to do with the Watson trade if the Texans decide to do it. Now, that's going to be a big question. Will the Texans decide to do it? There has been a lot of talk over the last several days after the Texans hired David Culley as their head coach, that the Texans have no interest, no intent whatsoever to trade Deshaun Watson. Not only that, but Tom Pelissero of NFL Network on NFL Total Access last week, I think it was Friday, I think I saw this, said that there were several teams that had already reached out to the Houston Texans regarding Watson's availability, and they were all none of them had their calls returned. Now, I don't know which teams that would be. We can sit here and assume that a couple of those teams might have been Miami and the Jets, since they were on top of Watson's list. That's just an assumption. We don't know, but no calls, according to Pelissero last weekend, were returned for that matter. So, do the Texans want to play hardball with Deshaun Watson is going to be a big question. They could fine him up to about $95,000 per day in minicamp if he decides to hold out during the spring, which you would think he probably will. And they could recoup as much as $21.5 million, $21.6 million to be exact, should Watson just hold out completely throughout the season and the Texans don't move him. So the Texans can do pretty well financially from that standpoint by having Watson hold out. But of course, the reality is going to set in, and you're starting to see a lot of stories come out now that the reality is going to set in that the Texans know that they can't continue to play hardball this much longer with Watson. They're going to have to decide to do something one way or the other. McClain in the same tweet adds that the Texans would potentially want 2 number ones, 2 number twos, and 2 young defensive starters at the very least. Basically, just to get in the door, that's what it sounds like, just to have a chance to get Watson. He says start with the Jets. Now, The thing with the Jets is this. Okay, they have the 2-1s. They could give the Texans basically their entire draft. We know the Jets have a lot of draft capital the next few years. They have 2 number 1s this year. The Jets have 2 number 1s next year in 22. They could give away the number 2 pick this year, which is a very valuable pick. Texans could go out there and get their replacement for a quarterback, whether it be a Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. They could give away certainly the pick that the Jets required from Seattle in the Jamal Adams trade. That could go to Houston, or they could couple it this way. They could give the Texans the number 2 pick this year and whatever their first pick will be for next year. You could do that, but then you go into the 2 number 2s and then the 2 young defensive starters, and that's where I start to have a pause of what can the Jets do here, because outside of Quinnen Williams, who is by a lot of regards a guy who's starting to make the turnaround in his development as a player, had a very nice finish to the season this year at defensive end for the Jets. A lot of people think that would be one player that would potentially go in a trade, but the question is, who would be the other player? Jets don't really have a lot of great players on their team. And Williams, for that matter, I wouldn't call him a great player. He's a developing player who had a really good year this past season. That's where I have to have pause and say, do the Jets really have enough, just based on that package, to offer Houston to get Deshaun Watson? And then you have to wonder this question. Do the Jets let's just say the Jets make this deal, they give away the 2 number 1s, let's just say the 2 number 1s from this year, couple of 2s, 1 this year, 1 next year, and they give away Quinnen Williams, and they find one other player. Who that other player may be is anybody's guess. You could say John Franklin Myers, for that matter. There aren't a lot of players out there in this roster that you can say is the second best defensive player on this team, especially with Marcus May as a free agent this year for the Jets. That could really hurt the Jets as far as their team, their roster. And this is a general manager in Joe Douglas, head coach in Robert Saleh have talked about building a football team, player development. Douglas is big on developing through the draft, as we all know. Do the Jets, when it comes to the nuts and bolts of this, are the Jets really going to be committed to saying, you know what, screw it. We're throwing everything out the window here. We're going to go get Deshaun Watson. What else would they have, for that matter, as far as draft capital after that? If they give away so many picks, and then you consider what they do to their roster, if they deplete the roster on the defensive side of the ball, that's a concern. Certainly should be a concern for Jet fans. It should be a concern that's certainly a concern that I would have moving forward, and certainly a concern the Jets should have before even making this kind of move. So that's why, if you are the Jets, you have to kind of sit there and pause. In addition, there is also a report out there that the Jets are shopping Sam Darnold. And then this report coming from the Jets Press. Also, I see here, this is the Jets Press through FanSided, saying that the Jets have received calls from multiple teams interested in Darnold. Now, whether this is, of course, obviously related to some of the Jets' interest in Deshaun Watson, that's pretty obvious at this point. We don't know what the Jets' choice is going to be ultimately. Are they going to stick with Darnold? Are they not? Are they going to draft the quarterback in Fields or in Zach Wilson? Or are they going to be able to swing this deal for Deshaun Watson, bite the bullet, if you will, and trade a lot of assets? And then the other thing is this. There's so many other teams that are going to be out there looking for Watson, right? We know Miami is certainly going to be in the mix. They are right there on the top of the list. They have certainly more quality players compared to the Jets do on the defensive side of the ball that they could offer up to the Houston Texans. They could basically give back the number 3 pick, which was initially Houston's, to them to go out there and get potentially their replacement quarterback, for that matter. So the Miami certainly has the capital and the pieces defensively to give to Houston if that is indeed what they're looking for. And then you consider this. Does Watson want to play for a team that, like the Jets, is still ways away from winning? Or does he want to go somewhere where he has a chance to win right away? He does have a no-trade clause. And you would have to assume that Watson's going to have to be approached beforehand, if he hasn't been already, to tell the Texans, these are the teams A, B, C, D, E that I want to go to. And then those teams will get called if the Texans decide to make this kind of move. So other teams out there, we've heard about the San Francisco 49ers, the New England Patriots, Chicago Bears. They're not going to trade in the division with Indianapolis, but there are a lot of teams that potentially could go out there. And then there's now the rumors that the Texans could be looking to trade J.J. Watt, their star defensive end, and maybe a team like the New York Giants, who are in desperate need of a edge pass rusher on their defense. That was a big problem for them this year. One of the main reasons why they did not make the playoffs, even though they went 6-10. There's a lot of reasons for that, but still, that was one of them. Would he be a guy that would end up becoming a piece that gets traded potentially to the Giants? So there's a lot of moving parts with the Texans, who are clearly considering at this point blowing things up. They are tanking 2021 big time right now, that's for sure. So we'll see. I think the Jets are in a very precarious spot right now. I really do. I know a lot of people want to see Watson here. He would be a generational talent for that matter. You don't know what you're going to get out of Sam Darnold anymore at this point. Now 3 years has been inconsistent play at the quarterback position. You really don't know what you're going to get out of a Zach Wilson or a Justin Fields, two rookies who are coming out of college. Both of them have shown signs of brilliance in college, obviously, but going from college to the NFL, you don't know what that quarterback is going to be. Watson, we know what he is. He's 25 years old. He's in his prime. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and at the same time, he was on a team that won only 4 games, even though he was one of the league's top passers. So, a lot to digest, and I just don't know. I just don't know at this point if the Jets are going to get Watson at this point. We'll see. But I think that the asking price could be, especially if they want starting players in return, could be a lot to ask at this point. But like I said, you never know. But we'll see how that thing breaks out here between the Jets, the Texans, and of course the other teams that are on this wish list or what have you for Watson, if the Texans even decide that they want to make a deal. Remember, folks, to follow us on social media at OpenMicNJ on Twitter, Facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. And remember, like and subscribe right here to the Sports Talk Nation. We'll talk to you next time.